Good morning. I'm Jim Cooper. I have a company called Conscientia Research. We do market research, help companies with their SBIR and commercialization. And for the last year and a half or so, I've been mentoring student teams across the CSU, so all 23 campuses. Most of these companies are in clean and green tech. They're in biotechnology, regular tech, computer tech, coding, that kind of stuff. And a lot of them are also in agriculture. So we've got quite a big spread of stuff. I was fortunate enough to go up to Santa Clara at the beginning of this year and help out some student teams who were pitching in front of VCs and also getting an NSF grant for $25,000, which was great. My student team won, and so I was very, very happy about that. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk to you about how nimble some of these undergraduate teams are. One of the fantastic things about undergraduates, I think, is that they've got nothing to lose, and that's probably the first takeaway that I think that we can learn from these undergraduates. The second thing is that across the CSU, and just the CSU, 23 campuses, about 50% of all research is done at the CSU level in California. That's right, 50%. It's a lot. So you're going to let that sink in. Not USC, not UC, not Caltech, the CSU. And most of these are being done by with a PhD or a postdoctoral fellow that's doing work in the lab and bringing these students through, these undergraduate students through, giving them a project, and then trying to see if some of those will spin off. And some of them have been very, very successful. So undergraduates are becoming better entrepreneurs and forming startups faster and with more agility. Research programs are being facilitated to spin off and right across all campuses across the United States by universities and colleges. SBIR especially, NIH, NSF, USDA are awarded increasingly to non-research universities, so all of the state campuses. I was talking to someone at Kansas State, and they said, we had nothing until the NSF decided to change their rules about giving more money to non-research institutions. So it was great for them, it was a boon for them, and hopefully it'll be a boon across California as well. Some colleges are entrepreneurship powerhouses. They aren't Stanford, MIT, or Caltech. Try San Jose State, BYU, Michigan, UPenn, University of British Columbia, and Fresno State. These are the big ones now. These have an entrepreneurial focus as part of their undergraduate inculcation. Why? Avenues to pitch ideas. They have created these avenues. We cultivate advice and are willing to listen. They're humble but assertive. These students are really, really humble and are really, really eager to listen. Support via grant mechanisms, so not just SBIR or STTR. They're looking at grants within the institution as well. Some of these go through their individual labs, and that's all good. They're used to bootstrapping. These are students. They have beans on toast for dinner. These are undergraduate students. They understand the meaning of bootstrapping. So I've been mentoring at the CSU. So many of these students will, say, work in San Francisco, and some of these are older students as well, in their mid-20s. And they'll then go to class across the bay or up to Sonoma. And, that's in traffic across the Bay Bridge, that's an hour's worth of driving. So these guys are really, really hungry. They have mentors. They have a lot of mentors. A lot, like 4 or 5 of them if they're spinning off a technology in the lab. They have their in-labs, they have academic mentors, and they have mentors in industry. So, we had, I think, 5 mentors per student group when we went to Santa Clara at the beginning of this year in intellectual property, commercialization. That was kind of my area of expertise. We had people that had worked with, you know, the greats like Steve Blank, and it was great. So these guys have got, you know, there's no shortcomings to their abilities because they've got these mentors that can help them through the process. Plus they're managing a course load. They've got their course load, they go into the lab, they work after hours, then they, you know, go off to work during the day, and at night come back to the university and they do more work, and they go home and they do their homework, and they go back and they repeat the process over and over again. They are energetic, really, really energetic. There is a new promotion of STEM careers at the university level, and this is good because it helps them understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And for some of them, that's entrepreneurship. So when I asked them what made them gravitate towards entrepreneurship, and they said, well, it beats working in retail. And just an aside to that, I have a 13-year-old, and she says to me the other day, she said, Dad, you know, I really want to do lifeguard training. I said, really, Alex? Why do you want to do lifeguard training? Because when I'm turned 15, Dad, I don't want to work at McDonald's. And I get it. And these are the millennials. So these are the millennials that are coming through, and they have got very different ideas to us, older people. And I admire them for that, but we have to adjust. So that might mean also adjusting at the venture capital level as well. It's unexpected for them. They kind of fell into entrepreneurship. They didn't start out thinking to themselves, you know what, today I'm going to become an entrepreneur, and then spin off their company. You know, they've got an idea, they've got a discovery in the lab, and then they've moved it out, and they've kind of created their own little culture that is, you know, bringing on board a person who might have some might take the entrepreneurial lead, and then someone else who's, you know, a business major somewhere over here might also have some expertise in an area of the technology that they're actually spinning off in the lab. So, you know, they're putting these very nimble, very agile groups together. So entrepreneurship for them is not necessarily a career path. Like I said, shoestringing, research budgets, so they already know the limitations of startup. When they get there, they think that their career is like a startup. So they think in terms only of starting up all the time. They look for co-working locations on campuses and outside, somewhere cheap. Sometimes it's just to get a coffee and do some work for a couple of hours. But they tend to want to get their student team together and do it. Do most of their work together in those kind of co-working spaces. So it's a healthy collaboration. There's very generous support through resources on campus as well. So from my experience at the CSU, there's a program that I've been working with a lot more than some of the other programs in the CSU, which is called CSUPERB. And CSUPERB is a program that works with biotechnology students, particularly biotechnology students or biomedical students. And they help them through the mentoring process and get their ideas commercialized. To date, there's been about 12 of those companies that have been spun off successfully, which is good, across 23 campuses, and it's been a 3-year program. I've been working in that program for about a year now, and it's been really, really great to see the progress that these students are making. So how is this possible? Well, they understand the pain points better. They're students, after all, like I told you, beans on toast, right? They work through the technical issues in collaboration with the student teams, guided by their lab mentors. They pivot often, and they pivot early. They work mainly to the lean startup model. So they tend to settle into what their final pivot is after about 6 months. But In that 6 months, they do a lot of rigorous testing of their hypotheses about the market, and also look at their customers and who their competitors are, what they're doing. They're not really impacted over money. You know, you can offer them a lot of money, and sometimes they'll just say, no, we're just happy doing what we're doing. And sometimes we just have to gracefully accept that, despite the fact that that could be a ramp up very, very quickly and become quite a successful company. I've run into this a couple of times, and although it's frustrating, you have to go with the flow. I'll give you an example. One student team that I was mentoring at San Jose State, they went to a pitch fest. They drove all the way out to Sacramento to this pitch fest. It was at a craft brewery. It was called Pitchers and Pitchers. And the prize money was $5,000 for the winner, and some time with 2 VCs, and then $2,000 for the next 2 after that. And this team that I had mentored won it. They thought, wow, great. I'm not sure whether they won it after having a couple of beers or before the beers, but by the by, they won this. These guys are doing this all the time. You know, that wasn't their first one, that was their 10th, and they were having fun with it. And I think that part of this is for them, especially these millennial groups, they're having fun with it, and they're trying to find their way through the current culture. And I'll get a little bit onto that a little bit later if we have time. They meet the money expectations through multiple means. So they might think about looking at an SBIR grant, they might look at their lab funding, they might look at stretching their resources a little bit, getting a manufacturer who will pay them on consignment, they can pay on consignment, all that kind of stuff. So they look at different avenues to the marketplace with respect to funding. They work out simple timelines to set goals and objectives in their company, rather than have a big kind of 3-year plan. They work out, well, if we can make it here in 3 months, we'll be happy. And then if we can make it here in another 3 months, we'll be really, really happy. So that's the kind of attitude they have. And I like that. Small goals, I think, if you add those little goals up and over smaller increments of time, you might actually get some very large results. They cultivate contacts to get them where they need to go. These kids are not afraid of even calling up like the Rupert Murdochs, or just picking up a phone and calling him. That's a VC? Oh yeah, okay. And they'll pick up the phone and they'll call them. They won't care if they get a no. They'll just call again tomorrow. They're not afraid. They're really not afraid. And if they don't have the contacts to get them there, they'll call me and I'll say, Jim, do you know so-and-so in this? Yeah, okay, sure. I'll make an introduction. They're not afraid to do it. Sometimes we're reluctant to do it. Even I'm reluctant to go out there and say, well, geez, I don't want to talk to them. They're real serious people, But they're not afraid. They're not afraid. They make it their business to know the market. They call me and they say, Jim, we really want to know the market. We don't have any money to give you. Okay. How much time do you want me to spend on this? A couple of hours. But, can you give us something 10 pages or so we can filter through it and we can put it in our slide deck? 10 pages, all right. I'll see what I can do. And they spend time in the space. One company that I met with from Sonoma, actually another company from Cal Poly, they spent time at a Trader Joe's just to learn about supply chain optimization. Really simple stuff, just to get them to understand what it was like to work within that supply chain. And I thought that was really creative. I mean, I don't think that many people in the regular startup community would think about, what do I need to do to get this knowledge or get this understanding? But they're willing to do it, and they're young. They don't use terms like founders. They don't call themselves entrepreneurs. In fact, they don't use very many terms at all. I'm always fascinated by how they say, oh, that's not part of us. That's not who we are. Really? Who's your founder? We don't have any founders. We all did this together. So you're all founders. No, we just founded. Well, how'd you start your company? Well, you know, hey, we all were in the lab and we all just thought it was a great idea. So you're all founders then. And this is a circular argument. You just can't get them to commit to saying anything like that. You know, are you an entrepreneur then? No, I'm just a student, you know. Okay, moving along. So where do they find the money? So they seek early funding from grants and crowdfunding or Kickstarter. And they do that to seed their company. Friends and family, of course, but typically we've found that friends and family, friends, certainly other undergraduates, don't have a whole lot of money. Like I said, they go to a lot of these pitch fests where they get some prize money, and so that funds them a little bit more in the lab. But eventually they have to get out there and really commercialize, and I think that's where they find their struggle. They can scale quickly though, making them more attractive to investors. And so when they do finally get that maturity level to want to go to an investor and actually pitch their idea and actually get some real money, and then commercialize, they've already got some revenue. One of my companies at Sonoma State has about $200,000 revenue. They look really attractive. They really, really do. I just wish now that they would take the next step and go to a VC. But they're not there yet. So this kind of gives you an idea of where these student teams are going. They have sophisticated IP regimes, so the licensing, shared ownership, all this kind of stuff. They are willing to spread that IP out really, really, really equitably. I found that fascinating, actually, because it's not like how I would do it, but they do, and they're creating a new system. I think they are. Out of the 12 student teams that I'm mentoring currently, about 8 of them have a very broad idea of what it means to own a company, what it means to own a technology or a discovery. So my advice, and this is where I wrap up, develop and collect the right team. One of the great things about these student teams is that they are gathering the right team, and sometimes if they're reaching that next level and they haven't got the right person there, then they'll go and get one. They'll go and get that right person and they'll bring them on board. You know, if that person is now only can take them this far, then they'll now get someone else. The undergraduates acquire and arrange across the right group from across the campus, and then arrange a calendar of co-working days so that they can share that workload. Trying to think of what it's like in my own office and trying to get people to, you know, do the work and co-work even. They're humble about seeking advice and do not pretend to know it all. You know, I get a lot of companies that say to me, I don't have any competitors, Jim. Really? I don't have any competitors at all. Okay, all right. And then, of course, just a cursory look on Google, and of course they've got that, and plus all the substitute products. That I tell a story sometimes about how TurboTax, everyone uses TurboTax, right, to do their tax, right? You know, they still only represent about 35% of the market. The rest is, you know, H&R blocks and ordinary people going down to the post office, getting their forms or downloading them from the internet. Still only represents less than what you would think. So the major competitor is still regular filing with paper and pens, you know, not e-filing. So that's their major competitor. So when I ask these, when we talk to these students, they're often, well, Jim, who are our competitors? We expect you to help us find that. We don't know it all. We expect you to help us. They know that there are competitors, and if they think that there may not be any competitors, they'll find them. They'll make sure they go out there and find them. So they cultivate the advice and the right people and connections. Last two, they practice their pitch over and over and over and over again. I mean, I am amazed at how much pitching they do. They call me up and they say, Jim, can we have a Skype? Sure. All right. Get on the Skype. What are we having the Skype for? Okay, we've got to pitch a new slide deck. Go ahead. So we pitch the new slide deck, make some changes. 2 days later, they call me up. Jim, have you got time? Yeah, I've got about 10 minutes. Oh, no, it's 25. All right, 25. They over and over and over again, they go to pitch fests, they go as many times as they can just to get the practice. In fact, some of these student teams, they split up and they do, 10 in a week. I mean, this is the kind of dedication they have to practicing their pitch, making sure they get it right. And finally, they stay ambitious, engaging, creative, and curious. And I think that is probably the most important takeaway of all.
Great presentation. So we're going to do Q&A next. I'll pass the mic around. If you can raise your hand, we'll give you the microphone. You can stand up, say your name, what your company is, and then ask your question.
Yeah, Pat, thanks for the presentation. Great. I've had the pleasure of working with some students, and it's really a great group. My question is, have you been able to steer some of their energy towards things like Engineers Without Borders?
I haven't, no. I want to find out more how I can do that. Yeah, that'd be great. Can I see you afterwards? Oh, cool.
Hi, my name is Graham. Very interested in the focus that they have on starting up, collaborating, the sort of flat hierarchy. I mean, this is great. They seem very good at creating. What I sort of got from your talk is that when it comes to actually going into the next step of commercialization and it becoming a more real world commercial venture, how does that transition sort of occur? Is it natural? Is that where the mentors come in? If you could explain a bit more on that, that'd be interesting.
All right, so a number of ways. Sometimes it's not as obvious as that. It's not as easy as that. You have to work with them, I think, over a longer period of time to get them to think to themselves, I think I can actually make a business out of this. I mean, like a real business, not like beer money. And so trying to get them to that, to thinking about that, that's the hard bit. But they do look for money, and they do get it. They are, at least 4 of my companies that I'm working with right now are actually looking at SBIR grants, which is great, because that's kind of the next step. I think that's the next step for many of these. They're following a lean startup model, so they know what they need to do with respect to their customers and their market. So I like that. They're moving in the right direction. Does that answer your question? Yeah. The problem is that they're not really thinking about VCs. In fact, you can say to them, look, I can get you in front of a friend of mine who's an angel. All right, okay. They get there, and then they don't know what to ask for. It's not because they're shy about asking for it. They're really not. They just don't know whether they're going to need it yet, and they want to be chased. That's really what they want. I think they just want to be chased.
So that sort of raises the question in the sense of, is this more something that they're obsessed with because it's creative and they're bringing out something new, and the more people that show interest in them, the greater the buzz that they get. But
well, I hope that happens.
Yeah. At what point does it maybe spill over from just a creative process into something that's actually productive and in the market of whatever they're doing?
Well, let's think about this creative process thing for a moment. So I've got another couple of companies that are startups that are getting SBIR grants that aren't undergraduate student projects, right? And these are regular companies. One's out in Marietta, and they do a medical device. And they have essentially lived on about a dozen SBIR and other small business grants over the last 2 years. Lived on it. No commercialization whatsoever. But they still say that they're creative and they're just perfecting their stuff in the lab before we really get out there and really commercialize. Where I think is the real creativity, because once you get it in the customer's hands, they're the ones who are really going to say to you, you need to change it here, here, and here, and you need to do this, this, and this, and this is how we want it delivered to us, and this is how we want to pay for it. But trying to get them to see past that, that's the challenge, I guess. But I don't think that the ones that I've dealt with over the last year and a half are at that stage yet. I think they're still, in that, it's a year and a half only, and we know that we need to get here, but when are we going to get here? I don't know. But we will, but...
Are they focused on that, or is this something that they get a little bit frightened of and they're more into the creative, and when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, they're not that interested?
I've seen a couple of these student teams have half of their group fall away and then get replaced, and but there's a core group of, it's like a band. In fact, many of them say it's like, a startup is like having a rock band. Jim, don't you know? Like, yeah. So then, like the guitarist is like the one guy who's the mainstay through the whole thing, right? But I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Hi, I'm Noah with Montana Banana Web Development, and you basically hit the point of the question I wanted to ask you, and it's basically, can you elaborate on when you said sometimes they're not motivated by money, they'll be offered money, and any of us who have been offered money, you look at the terms and you decide, but do you feel like they have different criteria, or what's motivating them to say no, do you think?
They certainly don't look at the terms. They don't look at the term sheet. They just don't. They just think, they look at it and they look around at their team and the team goes, yeah, maybe we should do this. Then they get scared. No. I think some of them just think that it's too much, too soon. Or how are we going to do this? What do we do with all this money? Now we've got these benchmarks, and we've got we've got to meet these milestones. Real pressure now. Oh, and I've still got a course load at school. I've still got a year away from graduating my undergraduate degree. What will my lab supervisors say? It's just little things like that. And for good or for worse, the CSUs, many of them don't have a transfer office for the IP. So a lot of the IP is owned by the lab. So that professor actually owns the IP. So there's nothing coming back to the school. There's no license fees, or no royalties, nothing coming back to the school. So there's an advantage there and a disadvantage. So these students are in that kind of a limbo for the most part. But in the other parts, they're going out and they're getting 10 pitch vests where they can get to drink lots and lots of beer, and sleep in their car on the side of the road from between Sacramento and Oakland. and that's really it. I don't know whether it's fear necessarily, but I just think that they're cautious and wary about not the terms. They're worried about the money itself, what they're going to do with it, how they're going to spend it.
Hi, Jim. I'm the CEO and founder of Rexter. Question, I read an article in a journal a few months ago which referenced some Kauffman Foundation research which said that the level of entrepreneurship of graduates had dropped by 50% in the last decade. And the way they were measuring that was the number of people who had equity in a private company soon after graduating. And I actually found that statistic to be quite, flabbergasting and non-intuitive given we're in the startup community. So do you see that statistic, and what is your reaction to that?
Playing out?
Yeah, playing out, because it feels counterintuitive.
Yeah, they don't want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to call themselves entrepreneurs. They don't want that. They want to graduate school, but they don't necessarily want to work in retail. They know that they've got an additional avenue, equity in company. I don't think they even think of it in terms of having a company, let alone getting equity in it. You know? What's your, you ask them, what's your equity stake in the company? I don't know. What's that? I'm just an electrical engineer. I just make, this small component, this small MEMS component. That's it.
Hey, Jim. My name is Vansh Kumar, and I'm a current undergraduate at Caltech, actually. And I was actually wondering, a lot of bigger schools, more established entrepreneurial schools, like Stanford, MIT, they have their own accelerators, incubators. Have you worked with teams that go through those, or what do you think of those?
Yeah, some of those student teams actually do go through the school's own incubation, and some of them are really, really good. I have to say though, about half of them fail, and I think that they fail with more, with greater frequency than if they didn't. I just don't think that there are a lot of political reasons. I think there are a lot of political reasons why a school would want to have an incubator and then have their student groups going through that incubator. Having said that, the numbers that they get don't necessarily reflect how many students are actually being brought through and successfully through the incubation system. I think it looks great to have an incubator on campus, but I just don't see the results coming out of the incubators. I really don't. I work with the incubator at Fullerton, and it's great. It's got great student teams there. It's got great stuff. There just seemed to be a year ago, the same companies there that are still there today. And I worry about that from the student team perspective, knowing that there are other CSU counterparts who are not going through it, going to 10 pitch fests a week, and they're not. I mean, it's anecdotal. Don't trust me on it necessarily, but I just think that that's what I see. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Okay, great presentation. And so one thing I feel the difference between, for example, the students with people who have already graduated and have already been working in industry for a couple of years is when you are in school, you can have many mentors. When you see like the one student, like 4 or 5 mentors, it's really a much greater response for the people who are in industry. So actually, my question is, for example, if you already graduated, you already work in industry for many years. Yeah. So how can you find the mentors and can you share some of your own experience or maybe?
I can put my hand up. I'll mentor you. No, seriously. Okay, so these students right now are not inculcated in the idea of what it means to own a startup, and they're not grounded in that. So for them, they're not even thinking about that whole idea of what do I do now as an entrepreneur. So when they graduate and they actually go into a normal, regular 9-to-5 kind of job, I think, and even if they leave that whole idea of having a startup behind, I think that they'll find other mentors, and if they still have the idea that perhaps sometime in the future they'll become an entrepreneur again and they'll have their own startup again, I think that maybe they'll think about what that avenue is and then cultivate those mentors as they go. But I like the raw undergraduate student. They don't think like a regular startup. They don't. They just don't. I love it. I think it's great.
So you described the students as not being as money-oriented, not wanting to take all the credit, basically being different from startups and basically want to control everything and get all the equity.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've considered alternative routes. Startup world seems to be kind of tunnel vision on high growth C Corp and big VC and big IPO type exits. It sounds like these students might be more compatible with other corporation types like S Corp, corporate cooperative, public benefit corporation. I've read a lot about millennials in their job searches looking more for purpose than for money.
Yeah.
And that kind of alternative social organization seems a lot more compatible with where they already are.
I think you're right. And I also think that they're sometimes not even at that stage of getting an S Corp. They're not even at that stage of getting any kind of corporate letter. You know, they just want to. When I talk to them, what their major thing is, we want to help someone. We want to help something. We want to do this. We want to make this different. You know, bringing water to Africa. Really? Bring water to California. You live in California and it's obvious, right? But no. These students say, "Oh, we want to take water to Africa, and we've got this, this unit that will help purify their water for them, and we'll do it at a much more efficient rate, and we don't need to change the membrane as frequently." Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do it in California. You're right. They want to have some kind of meaning, but they're just not. They just want a product. They just want to see it on the shelf. They like it. And they want to still rent. That's another thing. They want to still rent the same apartment that they've been living in, the rent control apartment that they've been living in. They want to live there. They want to stay living there. They want to go down to the same place. They're creatures of habit. Go to the same pub, buy the same beer, go to the same coffee shop, buy the same coffee every day. They're not interested in being millionaires. They're interested in, I don't know, how much, Jim, do you think I should earn? Is 30,000 enough? Okay, yeah, sure. If that's what you want, yeah. And I like this. This is so nimble and agile. I really just love it. Okay.
One of the issues you mentioned is graduation. Obviously, the focus is on getting that degree. Is there a way to incorporate your activities with them so that it relates to course and credit and everything?
I think they get credit as part, at least in the two programs that I'm involved in with the CSU. They are getting course credit. But once they get the taste of it, they really love just the idea of getting their product to market. And for half a dozen of them, they are, and at least 2 of them are making more than $100,000 for their company.
One last question.
Yeah.
Tom Linzo, CSU alum. Are you the only one for all the CSUs?
No. There's about 30 of us.
Okay, so they are taking this seriously.
They are taking this very seriously. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, some great advice. We've got a big room here of innovators from the Pasadena area. Is there anything we can do as a group to help you?
Yeah. I'd love to just to talk to everyone if I can. I know it's a big group, but as many as I can, and certainly come and get a photo at least.
All right, thanks for your time. Yeah. Okay, actually, I'm going to take a photo of you first. So if you can stand right here. And last week, nobody really photobombed very well. So let's get a nice photo of you. Ready? Your marks, get set. There you go.